Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Meher Sher and these are the headlines. In the U.S., the House of Representatives has approved a measure calling for President Donald Trump to be removed from office after the Capitol riots. Vice President Mike Pence, however, made clear he has no plans to invoke the 25th Amendment. In a letter to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Pence said the move to impeach Trump was against national interest and inconsistent with the Constitution. The United Nations says Pakistan leads in adopting the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its 17 ambitious goals. This was stated in UN Sustainable Development Framework Report for Pakistan. The report says Pakistan has become one of the first countries to take up its pledge to transform lives and protect the planet. The UN report has termed Pakistan's economic growth inclusive that benefits all people of the country. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has called for increased military power and greater nuclear war deterrence. Kim said this at the conclusion of the ruling party's rare Congress amid stalled nuclear talks with the United States. Meanwhile, the Korean leader's sister, Kim Yo-jong, accused Seoul of having a hostile approach towards Pyongyang. The U.S.'s death toll from COVID-19 has hit a new daily record of nearly 4,500, while its death tally has topped 380,000. China has reported 115 new infections, the highest daily increase in more than 5 months. Meanwhile, Pakistan has registered over 2,100 new cases and 55 more deaths, with toll at 10,772. Globally, the virus has claimed 1.96 million lives and infected over 91 million people so far. And in tennis, Polish Hubert Hurkacz has booked his spot in the final of the Delray Beach Open following a 7-6, 6-4 win over American Christian Harrison. The Polish fourth seed will face either Britain's Cameron Norrie or unseeded American Sebastian Korda in the finals. Well, those were the headlines. More news in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And now for the news in more detail. We begin in the United States. The House of Representatives has approved a measure calling for President Donald Trump to be removed from office after the Capitol Hill riots. Vice President Mike Pence, however, made clear he has no plans to back the move.
With only 8 days left in the Trump term, Vice President Mike Pence told House leaders he does not support invoking the 25th Amendment process. In a letter to the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Pence said that the move to impeach Trump was against national interest and inconsistent with the Constitution. Pence's refusal to go along means that Democrats will proceed to an impeachment vote, charging Trump with incitement of insurrection. This would make him the first United States president to ever be impeached twice. At least 5 Republicans have broken ranks and said they plan to back the Democrats. The United States Joint Chief of Staff have also confirmed Biden's victory and called the riots a direct assault on the Congress and the Constitution. Earlier in the day, the president took no responsibility for the breach of Congress by his supporters.
Moving on, Pakistan's President Arif Alvi has conferred the country's highest civil award, Nishan-e-Pakistan, on Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu. Cavusoglu was awarded in recognition of his services for international peace and security and further strengthening of Pakistan-Turkey ties. Meanwhile, the foreign ministers of Pakistan, Turkey and Azerbaijan are set to meet for a trilateral meeting today in Islamabad. In a statement, the Foreign Office said the trio will discuss various issues, including emerging threats to regional peace and security. It said the three foreign ministers will also explore ways to deepen trilateral cooperation in areas of common interest. The United Nations says Pakistan leads in adopting the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its 17 ambitious goals. This was stated in UN's Sustainable Development Framework report for Pakistan. The report says Pakistan has become one of the first countries to take up its pledge to transform lives and protect the planet. The UN report has reaffirmed Pakistan's goal of leaving no one behind, especially to help the most vulnerable people in the country. It has termed the country's economic growth inclusive that benefits all people of the country. The report states that due to the government's policies, all people would have access to quality services. And hundreds of thousands of farmers protesting in India have once again refused consultations with the government. It comes a day after the top court halted the implementation of the new farm laws and called for setting up a committee to address grievances. The farmers' leaders say the nominated committee members are pro-government. The farmers' union said all the members of the committee have publicly advocated the laws. They said the committee is a distraction and they have reiterated their demand for repeal of the laws. As the agitation enters its 50th day, it involves around 250 million protesters, with many more standing in solidarity with the Indian farmers globally. Now, Iran has rejected the United States' accusation of having ties with the terrorist organization Al-Qaeda. In a statement, Iran's foreign ministry spokesman said Tehran's record in the campaign against Al-Qaeda and ISIS is crystal clear. Saeed Khatibzadeh said resorting to baseless old claims will not assist the United States to correct its erroneous path. He also said the latest episode of American extremists will not assist them in their addiction to sanctions and tension creation. Earlier, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo accused Iran of having involvement in planning the September 11th terrorist attacks. Pompeo also accused Iran of hosting a new base for Al-Qaeda. Moving on, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has called for increased military power and greater nuclear war deterrence. Kim said this at the conclusion of the ruling party's rare Congress amid stalled nuclear talks with the United States. Kim said North Korea needs to do everything in order to build the most powerful military. Earlier in Congress, he said U.S. policy will not change towards the country, whoever comes in power. Meanwhile, Kim's sister Kim Yo-jong criticized South Korea's military for monitoring a parade in Pyongyang. She said that such close tracking proved Seoul's hostile approach towards its neighbor. And now the U.S. has hit a new record of daily deaths with nearly 4,500 fatalities overnight, and the nationwide death toll has crossed 380,000. China reported its biggest daily surge in more than 5 months, with 115 new infections. Globally, the virus has claimed 1.96 million lives and infected 91 million people so far. For the latest on the pandemic, let's watch this report.
As cases of COVID-19 continue to surge worldwide, Canada's most populous province of Ontario has again issued stay-at-home orders. In the United States, the last responders or the staff in California's funeral homes are registering the highest number of coronavirus-linked deaths since the pandemic began. The United States Infectious Diseases Society says that the states need more money and they need it more quickly to speed up the rollout of the vaccines. Meanwhile, Argentina has successfully concluded clinical trials for a hyperimmune serum against COVID-19 developed with antibodies from horses. Developers of the serum say its mass distribution will begin over the next few days.
Following the development in Argentina, we have already been in contact with several Latin American countries, and we are looking at boosting capacity. We believe that in March we will have 100,000 vials per month. We are also looking at possibilities of producing outside the country with the transfer of technology if there is a plant that has the same processes and capacity to do it.
Scientists have warned that mutations in the variant first spotted in South Africa might decrease the vaccine efficacy, while the World Health Organization says the variant first discovered in Britain has spread to at least 50 more countries. It says scientists need to collect and sequence samples of the virus to help the world detect dangerous new mutations. In the Netherlands, the lockdown has been extended by 3 weeks, while Germany's hard lockdown is also likely to last further 8 to 10 weeks. Meanwhile, at the Biodiversity Summit, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson blamed the pandemic on a demented belief in traditional medicine.
Don't forget that the coronavirus pandemic was the product of an imbalance in man's relationship with the natural world, like the original plague that struck the Greeks.
In the meantime, China's Sinovac vaccine was found to be just 50.38% effective in late-stage trials in Brazil, significantly lower than earlier reported. In Australia, Queensland has ordered hundreds of residents to restart their quarantine over fears of the spread of the United Kingdom variant.
Whereas in Pakistan, 55 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. This takes the country's death toll to over 10,772. The health ministry reported 2,123 infections overnight. It says there are more than 33,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. The ministry said out of over 508,000 countrywide cases, more than 464,000 people have recovered. Meanwhile, the Phase 1 trials of China's Sinopharm vaccine are in their final stage in the southern port city of Karachi. And we'll be back with more news after a short break. Stick around. We're back. Russia has proposed inclusion of the UK and France in the New START nuclear arms control treaty. Moscow says it is ready to discuss extension of the treaty with the upcoming U.S. administration under Joe Biden. The Russian ambassador to the U.S. said the extension will give time for comprehensive bilateral talks on future control over nuclear weapons. Anatoly Antonov said the 5-year period will be used to maintain the level of transparency in U.S.-Russia strategic relations. The New START treaty is the last nuclear arms control agreement between Russia and the United States, and it will expire in February 2021 if not extended. Germany says it wants to have a good start to transatlantic relations with the United States President-elect Joe Biden. Finance Minister Olaf Scholz says the key goal with the Biden administration is to reach a deal to introduce global rules on corporate taxation. He also called for some form of taxation on digital companies. Scholz said Biden is the right man to lead the United States and unite his people.
Joe Biden is the right man for the next presidency. I heard him very often, and I read a lot of texts where he always said he's called middle-class Joe in the United States, and not everyone is thinking that this is a good idea of him. But being this guy, I think a lot of people understood that he could be the one to put the United States society better together as has happened in the past.
Moving on, France has denounced Israel's plan to construct 800 more Jewish settler homes in the occupied West Bank. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry said Israeli authorities must drop the plan. It urged Israel to avoid any unilateral measures that could jeopardize the two-state solution. On Monday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu approved the construction of 800 new settlement units in the occupied West Bank. The West Bank, including East Jerusalem, is regarded as occupied territory under international law. In New Zealand, police says a man smashed the glass door of the Parliament's main entrance with an axe. Officials said the perpetrator, however, did not try to enter the building. Police said they were called to the complex in the capital, Wellington, after getting reports of the attack. The 31-year-old man was arrested in about 10 minutes. The man has been charged with intentional damage and possession of an offensive weapon. If found guilty, he could face up to 7 years in prison. Now, with the hope to reach Europe, hundreds of migrants use Bosnia's northwestern town of Bihać as a hub. Sheltering in and around the city, they face snow and freezing weather. This report has more.
Since early 2018, Bosnia has become a transit route for thousands of migrants aiming to reach Europe. But it has become increasingly difficult to cross the European Union borders, and impoverished Bosnia has become a dead end for them. Bosnia houses some 8,000 migrants. About 6,000 are in camps around the capital, Sarajevo, and in the country's bordering city with Croatia. The International Organization for Migration says its mobile teams are helping around 1,000 people. IOM camp manager Natasa Omorovic reiterates that migrants are in dire need of basic humanitarian assistance.
People living in squats or those who are finding solutions in some deserted houses, devastated houses during the Bosnian War in here are in the need of the basic humanitarian assistance. Those people do not have the possibility for regular food distributions to receive the food on a daily basis. They cannot seek for medical assistance.
Extreme winter cold is surging the miseries of the squatters. A 16-year-old migrant from Afghanistan has been sleeping in an abandoned bus for almost 6 months. He is desperately looking for help.
I was at the Sidra camp and then in Bira camp for 2 months. I have been sleeping in a bus for about 5 to 6 months now, and I'm living in really bad conditions. I'm in really a bad way. There is no one to look after us here, and the conditions are not safe here.
A group of migrants have found shelter in an abandoned house in Bihak. They have had modest dinner cooked under torchlight. They have no water and have to sleep on dirty concrete floors.
Many of migrants are living in this cold weather. In this weather, because of the coldness, they doesn't have shoes and jackets and clothes. You can check out our sleeping place as well. So too dusty. And my problem is here to take a wash. No water, hot water to take a wash. So
and for a shower.
For a shower. So for cooking as well, so problem.
The Bosnian authorities have provided heated military tents and beds to the migrants. However, the government is still unable to provide adequate assistance to all the migrants.
Moving on to business, stocks in the Asia-Pacific are trading mixed as investors watch for developments on the coronavirus front. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 and the Topix index have gained close to 1%. South Korean stocks have recovered around 0.5% after plunging over 2% yesterday. Shares in Australia, too, have edged up fractionally above the flat line. But mainland Chinese shares have slipped over 0.5%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng has also dipped marginally. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.